The November rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Manhattan. Memorial Hospital as Chloe Martinez
Please
burst
help
through
me.
the revolving doors, her 7-year-old son Tommy limp in her arms. His small body
Ma'am, are you
burned
all right?
with
Let us
fever,
help you.
his
I
breathing
don't know what to
shallow
do.
and labored.
It's okay, we're here to help.
The
Come with
normally
us.
vibrant child who filled their tiny apartment with laughter and dinosaur facts now lay frighteningly still, his lips tinged with blue. Chloe's sneakers squeaked against the polished marble floor as she ran toward the reception desk.
Please
Her wet hair
help me.
plastered to her face, mascara running in black streaks down her cheeks. She had been in the middle of her evening shift at the diner when Tommy's babysitter called, panic evident in her voice. The
Ma'am, are
subway
you all
ride
right? Let
felt
us
like
help
an
you.
eternity.
I don't know what
Chloe
to do.
whispering
It's okay, we're
prayers
here to
and
help. Come
promises
with
to
us.
God, to anyone who would listen.
Please help
The
me.
hospital lobby was a stark contrast to the storm outside. Everything gleamed with expensive elegance. Crystal chandeliers cast soft light over leather furniture, an abstract art that probably cost more than Chloe made in 5 years. This was not the kind of place for people like her. This was where the wealthy came when they needed the best medical care money could buy. But it was also the closest hospital when the babysitter called, and Chloe could not waste another second. A receptionist in a crisp navy suit looked up from her computer screen, her expression immediately shifting from professional courtesy to thinly veiled judgment as she took in Chloe's appearance. Chloe wore her diner uniform, a cheap polyester dress that smelled of grease and coffee, now soaked through from the rain. Her hands, still bearing band-aids from kitchen burns, trembled as she approached the desk. "Please, my son needs help right now," Chloe managed to say, her voice breaking. "He cannot breathe properly. He has been sick for 2 days, but tonight he just collapsed. Please, somebody help him." The receptionist's fingers moved slowly across the keyboard. "I will need to see your insurance information, ma'am. This facility requires pre-authorization for emergency services unless you can provide a credit card for the deposit." Chloe felt her world spinning. How much is the deposit? $5,000. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. Chloe worked 3 jobs. She waitressed at the diner from 6 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. Then she cleaned offices downtown until 7 in the evening. 3 nights a week, she stocked shelves at a grocery store from 9 at night until 2 in the morning. Every dollar she earned went toward rent, food, Tommy's school supplies, and the mountain of medical bills from his father's abandonment 3 years ago. She had exactly $47 in her checking account. "I do not have that much," Chloe whispered, feeling Tommy's weight growing heavier in her arms, his breath coming in short gasps. "But I work. I will pay whatever it costs. I will work extra shifts. I will do anything. Just please save my son," the receptionist sighed, a sound that conveyed both pity and inconvenience. "Let me call the financial counselor. You can take a seat over there. He needs a doctor now, not a financial counselor." Chloe's voice rose in desperation. Tommy whimpered softly, and she looked down at his pale face, his eyes fluttering. "Baby, stay with mommy, stay with me, okay?" Other people in the waiting area stared. A woman in a fur coat clutched her designer purse closer as if poverty might be contagious. An elderly man in an expensive suit shook his head and returned to his phone. Chloe had never felt more invisible, yet more exposed in her entire life. Then she did something she had sworn she would never do. She had too much pride, her mother always said. But pride meant nothing when your child was dying in your arms. Chloe sank to her knees on that cold marble floor right there in the middle of the lobby and began to beg. "Please," she called out to anyone who would listen. "Somebody please help me. My little boy is dying. He is only 7 years old. He loves dinosaurs and wants to be a paleontologist. He helps me fold laundry and never complains when we have pasta for dinner 5 nights in a row. He is good and kind, and he deserves to live. Please, I am begging you. Somebody help us." Tears streamed down her face, mixing with the rainwater still dripping from her hair. She clutched Tommy closer, feeling his heart beating too fast against her chest. The people in the lobby looked away, embarrassed by her display, uncomfortable with such raw emotion in their pristine sanctuary. From the bank of elevators across the lobby, a man emerged. James Whitmore had just finished a tedious board meeting for the hospital's new wing, a project his company was funding. At 38 years old, James stood 6 feet 2 inches tall, with the kind of presence that made people instinctively step aside. His charcoal gray suit was custom-tailored, his Italian leather shoes worth more than most people's monthly rent. Dark hair swept back from a face that magazines called distinguished. With sharp cheekbones and piercing blue eyes that rarely betrayed emotion, James had built Whitmore Industries from the ground up, turning a modest tech startup into a billion-dollar empire that touched everything from software to real estate. He was known in business circles as ruthlessly efficient, fair but cold, a man who valued results over relationships. His personal life was equally sterile. A penthouse apartment that looked like it belonged in an architecture magazine, filled with expensive objects but empty of warmth. No wife, no children, no pets, just work deals and the quiet satisfaction of watching his net worth grow. He had been checking his phone, already mentally preparing for his next meeting, when Chloe's voice cut through his concentration. James looked up, and for a moment, time seemed to slow. He saw a young woman on her knees, clothes soaked in cheap, holding a child who was clearly in medical distress. He saw her tears, her desperation, her complete and utter vulnerability. And something long dormant inside him stirred. James walked toward them with purposeful strides. The receptionist stood up, recognizing him immediately. "Mr. Whitmore, I apologize for the disturbance. Security is on the way to handle this situation." "Handle it?" James asked, his voice quiet but carrying authority. He looked at Chloe, really looked at her, and saw something in her eyes that he had not seen in years. Pure, unconditional love. The kind that made someone forget pride and beg strangers for help. Chloe looked up at this tall man in his expensive suit, another person from a world that did not include people like her. She expected rejection, perhaps another lecture about hospital policies. Instead, James knelt down on the marble floor beside her, heedless of his expensive suit. "What is your son's name?" he asked gently. "Tommy," Chloe managed to say, through her tears. "His name is Tommy." James looked at the little boy, saw the labored breathing, the pale complexion, the obvious distress. He had never had children, had never wanted them. Kids meant complications, emotional entanglements, things that interfered with business. But looking at Tommy's small face, James felt something crack in the carefully constructed walls around his heart. He stood up and turned to the receptionist, with a voice that brokered no argument. "I want Dr. Patterson here immediately. Get the pediatric emergency team ready. Have them prepare OR2. This child will receive every possible treatment this hospital can provide." The receptionist blinked. "Sir, there is the matter of payment authorization. Bill everything to this card. I do not care what it costs. Now move." The receptionist grabbed the card and began making rapid phone calls. Within 30 seconds, 2 nurses appeared with a gurney. Within a minute, Dr. Patterson, the hospital's chief of pediatric medicine, came running from the emergency wing. James helped Chloe to her feet. She swayed, overwhelmed by the sudden change in fortune, by exhaustion, by fear. "I do not understand," she whispered. "Why are you helping us?" James looked at her, at this stranger whose desperation had somehow pierced through years of emotional armor. Because no child should suffer while adults argue about money, Dr. Patterson was already examining Tommy on the gurney, firing off orders to his team. Severe pneumonia with respiratory distress. Possible sepsis. "We need to move now." They whisked Tommy away through double doors marked emergency personnel only. Chloe tried to follow, but a nurse gently stopped her. "You cannot go into the treatment area, but I will take you to the family waiting room right next to it. Dr. Patterson will update you as soon as he knows more." Chloe nodded numbly. She turned to James, this stranger who had just changed everything. "Thank you. I do not know how I will ever repay you, but I promise I will, even if it takes the rest of my life." James studied her face, seeing the exhaustion, the fear, but also the fierce determination. This was not someone looking for a handout. This was a mother who would walk through fire for her child. "We will worry about that later. Right now, your son needs you to be strong." The nurse led Chloe away, and James found himself following. He told himself it was just to ensure everything was handled properly, that his investment was protected, but deep down he knew it was something else. Something about Chloe's desperation. Her willingness to sacrifice her dignity for her child had touched a part of him he thought had died years ago. The waiting room was small, but comfortable, with soft lighting and magazines nobody ever read. Chloe sat on the edge of a chair, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. James sat across from her, and an awkward silence fell between them. After several minutes, Chloe spoke softly. "You did not have to stay." "I know," James replied simply. "Most people would have just paid and left. I am not most people." Chloe looked at him properly for the first time. She saw expensive clothes and an expensive watch, saw the kind of polished appearance that came from a life of privilege. But she also saw something in his eyes, a flicker of pain or memory that made him seem less like a statue and more like a human being. "I am Chloe," she said quietly. "Chloe Martinez. And you already know about Tommy." "James Whitmore," he responded. Recognition flickered across Chloe's face. Even she, who barely had time to watch the news, knew that name. Whitmore Industries was everywhere. This man was not just wealthy. He was one of the richest men in the country. "Oh," she said faintly, feeling even more out of place. "I am sorry. I did not realize who you were when I was making a scene in the lobby." "You were not making a scene," James said firmly. "You were fighting for your son's life. There is a difference." Silence fell again. Hours crawled by. A nurse came twice with updates. The surgery was progressing. Tommy was stable. Dr. Patterson was optimistic. Each time, Chloe's shoulders would relax slightly, only to tense again the moment the nurse left. James ordered food from the hospital cafeteria. Though Chloe barely touched hers, he made phone calls, rescheduled meetings, and answered emails, but he did not leave. Something kept him rooted to that uncomfortable chair, watching this woman he did not know fall apart and pull herself back together over and over again at 3 a.m. Dr. Patterson finally emerged, still in his surgical scrubs, looking tired but pleased. "Tommy is going to be fine." It was touch and go for a while. He had severe pneumonia that had progressed to early-stage sepsis. Another few hours, and we might have lost him. But we cleared the infection, repaired some damage to his lung tissue, and he is responding well to antibiotics. He will need to stay here for about a week, but he should make a full recovery. Chloe collapsed back into her chair, sobbing with relief. "Can I see him?" "He is in recovery now, still sedated. Give us another hour to get him settled in the pediatric ICU, and then you can sit with him. He is a fighter, that boy of yours." After Dr. Patterson left, Chloe turned to James with tears streaming down her face. But this time, they were tears of gratitude and joy. "You saved his life. You saved my baby's life. How can I ever thank you?" James looked at this woman who had shown him more real emotion in one night than he had experienced in years. "Tell me your story," he said quietly. Over the next hour, as they waited for Tommy to be settled in the ICU, Chloe told James her story. She spoke of growing up in a small apartment with her mother, a seamstress who worked until her fingers bled to give Chloe opportunities she never had. She talked about meeting Tommy's father in college, the one semester she managed to attend before money ran out. She described the joy of discovering she was pregnant, followed by the devastation when Tommy's father disappeared, leaving her with nothing but a note saying he was not ready to be a parent. Chloe explained how she dropped out of school to work, how she juggled multiple jobs to keep a roof over their heads, how Tommy never complained even though other kids had toys and vacations while he had library books and walks in the park. She spoke with a mixture of exhaustion and fierce pride. James found himself captivated by her resilience. When she finished, James was quiet for a long moment. "You were raising your son alone, working 3 jobs, and you still found time to teach him about dinosaurs." Chloe smiled softly. "He teaches himself mostly. He gets books from the library and memorizes everything. Last month, he explained the difference between the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods to me while I was cooking dinner. I understood maybe half of it, but I love watching his face light up when he talks about things he loves." Something twisted in James's chest. He had all the money in the world but could not remember the last time. His face had lit up about anything. The nurse came to tell them Tommy was ready for visitors. James stood to leave, but Chloe grabbed his hand. "Please come with me. I want him to meet the man who saved his life." Tommy looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, surrounded by machines and tubes. But his eyes were open, and when he saw his mother, he managed a weak smile. "Hi, Mommy." Chloe rushed to his side, kissing his forehead, smoothing his hair, touching his face, as if to confirm he was really there and really alive. "Hi, baby. How do you feel?" "Tired, and my chest hurts." "I know, sweetheart. But you are going to be okay. The doctors fixed you up." Tommy noticed James standing by the door. "Who is that?" James stepped forward, suddenly uncertain. He had negotiated billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat. But a 7-year-old boy's curious gaze made him nervous. "My name is James. I am a friend of your mother's." "Did you help me?" Tommy asked, with the directness of children. "The doctors helped you?" "I just made sure they could." Tommy studied him seriously. "Thank you. My mom always says we should be grateful when people are kind to us." He paused, then added, "Do you like dinosaurs?" James found himself smiling, something he rarely did. "I do not know much about them." "That is okay. I can teach you. Did you know that the Tyrannosaurus Rex could bite with a force of 12,000 pounds? That is stronger than any animal alive today." For the next 20 minutes, Tommy talked about dinosaurs with the enthusiasm only a child can muster, even while hooked up to hospital equipment. James listened, asked questions, and discovered that he genuinely enjoyed hearing this small boy's excitement about prehistoric creatures. When Tommy finally fell asleep again, Chloe walked James to the elevator. "You do not have to keep visiting. You've done more than enough already." "What if I want to visit?" James asked, surprising himself with the question. Chloe looked at him carefully. "Why would you want to spend time with us? We are nobody special." "You are wrong about that," James said quietly. The elevator arrived, but he did not step inside immediately. "I will be back tomorrow." And he was. James showed up the next afternoon with a tablet loaded with dinosaur documentaries for Tommy and a bag of clothes from a nearby store for Chloe, who had been wearing the same diner uniform for 2 days. He visited every day that week, sometimes staying for hours, talking with Chloe, while Tommy slept or watching documentaries with the boy when he was awake. James found himself telling them things he never told anyone. About building his company from nothing, about the loneliness of success, about how he had spent so many years focused on making money that he forgot to make a life. Chloe listened without judgment. And Tommy asked innocent questions that made James think about his choices in ways he never had before. On the 5th day of Tommy's hospital stay, James made an offer. "I need someone to manage the employee wellness program at Whitmore Industries. It is a new position. The job involves coordinating health benefits, organizing wellness activities, and making sure our staff has access to resources they need. The salary is $85,000 a year, plus full health insurance for you and Tommy." Chloe stared at him. "James, I appreciate what you are trying to do, but I cannot accept charity disguised as a job." "It is not charity," James insisted. "I have been thinking about creating this position for months. The job is real. I need someone who understands what it is like to struggle. Someone who will actually care about helping our employees instead of just checking boxes on a form. You would be perfect for it." "I did not finish college. I have no qualifications. You're the most important qualification. You have empathy. Everything else can be learned." James held her gaze. "Let me do this. Not as a favor, but because I genuinely think you would be good at the job. And because Tommy deserves to have his mother around more than 3 hours a day." Chloe felt tears prickling her eyes. "I do not know what to say. Say yes." After a long moment, Chloe nodded. "Yes, thank you." Tommy came home from the hospital a week later, and Chloe started her new job the following Monday. The Whitmore Industries headquarters occupied the top 15 floors of a gleaming skyscraper in downtown Manhattan. Chloe's office was small, but had a window with a view of the city. Her coworkers were polite but distant, clearly wondering why this woman with no corporate experience had been hired directly by James Whitmore himself. The rumors started almost immediately. People whispered that she was James's girlfriend, his mistress, someone he felt guilty about and was paying off. Chloe heard the gossip and held her head high, doing her job with dedication and refusing to let other people's assumptions define her. James found excuses to see her. Budget meetings for the wellness program, strategy sessions, coffee breaks that turned into long conversations about everything and nothing. He discovered that Chloe made him laugh, something he had not done regularly in years. She teased him about his expensive suits and his inability to make a decent cup of coffee. She challenged his assumptions about business and reminded him that employees were people, not just numbers on a spreadsheet. Slowly, without either of them quite realizing it, friendship became something more. James found himself thinking about Chloe at odd hours, wondering what she would think about a business decision or wanting to share something funny that happened in a meeting. Chloe caught herself looking forward to seeing James every day, noticing the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the gentle way he spoke to Tommy when he occasionally brought the boy to the office after school. But there were obstacles. Veronica Sterling, James's business partner and the company's chief operations officer, watched their growing closeness with increasing alarm. Veronica was 42, brilliant, ambitious, and had been in love with James for 10 years. She had always believed that eventually James would see her as more than a business partner, that her patience would be rewarded. Chloe's arrival threatened everything Veronica had been waiting for. Veronica began her campaign subtly. She questioned Chloe's decisions in meetings, implying incompetence. She spread rumors about Chloe's past, suggesting she was using her son's illness to manipulate James. She scheduled important meetings when she knew Chloe needed to pick up Tommy from school, making her look unreliable. The tension came to a head at a company gala 3 months after Chloe started working at Whitmore Industries. James had invited Chloe as his guest, not as an employee, but as someone he genuinely wanted to spend the evening with. Chloe bought a simple black dress from a department store, the most expensive piece of clothing she had ever owned, and felt both excited and terrified. She looked beautiful that night, her dark hair styled simply, minimal makeup highlighting her natural features. When James saw her, his breath caught. "You look stunning," Chloe blushed. "You do not have to say that. I am not saying it because I have to. I am saying it because it is true." The gala was held in the ballroom of an elegant hotel. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, and women in designer gowns drifted past like exotic birds. Chloe felt out of place immediately, but James stayed by her side, his hand resting lightly on the small of her back, introducing her to people and making her feel like she belonged. Veronica watched them all evening, her jaw clenched so tightly it ached. She wore a red designer dress that cost $10,000 and looked like she had stepped off a runway. But James barely glanced at her. All his attention was on that nobody in her cheap department store dress. Midway through the evening, Veronica approached them with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Chloe, how lovely to see you here. I must say, you clean up nicely." The insult was subtle enough to sound like a compliment. Chloe felt her cheeks burn. James's voice was cold. "Veronica, that was unnecessary." "Was it?" Veronica turned to him, dropping all pretense. "James, can I speak with you privately?" They moved to a quiet corner, and Veronica wasted no time. "What are you doing?" "The entire company is talking about you and that woman." "She is using you, James." She saw a wealthy man and latched on. "You do not know what you are talking about, do I not? She had a sick child and no money. You appeared like a knight in shining armor. Now she has a job she is not qualified for, salary that is absurd for her position, and she has her hooks in you so deep you cannot see straight." James felt anger rising. Chloe is not like that. Every woman is like that when she is desperate enough. Veronica softened her voice, placing a hand on his arm. "I care about you, James. I do not want to see you hurt. And I certainly do not want to see this company's reputation damaged because you are thinking with your heart instead of your head." James pulled away from her touch. "My personal life is not your concern, is when it affects Whitmore Industries. The board is already asking questions. How long before this becomes a scandal?" Across the room, Chloe watched them talking, and saw the intimate way Veronica touched James's arm. She saw how beautiful and sophisticated Veronica was, how perfectly she fit into this world of wealth and power. And Chloe suddenly understood what she had been trying to ignore. She did not belong here. She would never belong here. And eventually James would realize that too, the morning after the gala. Chloe sat in her small office staring at a blank computer screen. She had barely slept, her mind replaying every moment of the evening. Every whispered conversation she had noticed between James and Veronica, every curious glance from the other guests. She knew what they were all thinking, because she was thinking it too. What was a billionaire doing with a former waitress? Her phone buzzed with a text from James asking if she wanted to grab lunch. Chloe stared at the message for a long time before typing her response. She needed to talk to him, but not here, not where everyone could watch and speculate. They met at a small cafe near Central Park. Far from the corporate towers and prying eyes, James arrived in jeans and a sweater, looking more relaxed than she usually saw him at work. He smiled when he saw her, but his smile faded when he noticed her expression. "What is wrong?" he asked immediately. Chloe took a deep breath. "I am quitting my job." James sat back as if she had slapped him. "What? Why?" "Because I am causing problems for you and the company. Because people are talking and making assumptions. Because Veronica is right." "Veronica does not know anything," James said sharply. "She knows that I do not belong in your world. And she is right about that." Chloe's voice was steady even though her heart was breaking. "I am grateful for everything you have done for Tommy and me. You literally saved my son's life, and you gave me opportunities I never dreamed of having. But this thing between us, whatever it is, it cannot work." "Why not?" James demanded. "Because you are James Whitmore, Billionaire CEO, and I am Chloe Martinez, who served you coffee 6 months ago. Because your business partner is in love with you and is sophisticated and educated and beautiful, and I am none of those things. Because Tommy deserves a stable life, and I cannot give him that if I am caught up in some fantasy that is going to end badly." James reached across the table and took her hand. "What if it is not a fantasy? What if this is the most real thing I have felt in my entire life?" Chloe pulled her hand away, tears threatening to fall. "Please do not make this harder than it already is. I need to do what is best for my son, and that means stepping away before this gets more complicated."
Complicated?
James's voice rose slightly. "Chloe, I am in love with you." The words hung in the air between them. Chloe felt her heart stop, restart, then race forward. She had hoped for those words and feared them in equal measure. "You think you are," she said softly, "but you are not. You are in love with the idea of me, with the way I made you feel like you were doing something good. But that is not the same as really loving someone." "Do not tell me what I feel," James said firmly. "I know my own heart. And I know that for the first time in 20 years, I actually want to come home from work because I might see you. I know that Tommy's terrible dinosaur jokes make me happier than closing my last merger did. I know that watching you fight for your son made me want to be a better person. That is real, Chloe. That is love." Tears were streaming down Chloe's face now. "It does not matter. Your world and my world are too different. I will always be the charity case you helped, and you will always be the rich man who saved me. People will never let us forget that. Then we will prove them wrong." "How?" Chloe asked desperately. "How do we prove them wrong when they are right? I do not have a degree or a pedigree or anything to offer you except a 7-year-old boy who talks to much about dinosaurs and a lot of baggage." James stood up suddenly and knelt beside her chair, not caring about the other cafe patrons who were starting to stare. "You want to know what you have to offer? You taught me how to feel again. You showed me that success means nothing if you are alone. You reminded me that there are things more important than money. You have courage and strength and dignity that most people will never have. Tommy has more wisdom in his 7 years than I have in my 38. You both have made my life worth living again." He took a deep breath. "I have not been completely honest with you. I let you believe I came from money, that I always lived in penthouses and drove expensive cars. The truth is, I grew up in a trailer park in Ohio. My mother cleaned houses. My father was a mechanic who drank too much. I put myself through college on scholarships and worked 3 jobs just like you did. I built my company from nothing, and along the way, I forgot where I came from. I forgot what really mattered. Until I saw you on your knees in that hospital lobby and I remembered. Chloe stared at him, shocked. Why did you not tell me? Because I spent 20 years running from that past, pretending I was always the person I am now. I was ashamed of where I came from. But watching you raise Tommy with such grace and dignity, never apologizing for who you are, made me realize that my past is not something to hide. It is part of what made me who I am. James took both her hands in his. So do not tell me we come from different worlds. We come from the same world. I just forgot that for a while. You reminded me. Chloe was crying fully now, torn between wanting to believe him and being terrified of the consequences. What about Veronica and the board and all the people at your company who think I am using you? Let me worry about them. James stood, pulling her up with him. I have a board meeting tomorrow. Come with me. The next morning, Chloe sat in the back of the conference room at Whitmore Industries, feeling like she was about to face a firing squad. The board members filed in, 12 successful business people who collectively controlled billions of dollars. Veronica was there too, sitting at James's right hand as she always did. Looking smug and confident, James called the meeting to order, and then surprised everyone by starting with a personal announcement. Before we begin with the quarterly reports, I have something to say. Over the past few months, there has been speculation about my relationship with Chloe Martinez, who heads our employee wellness program. I am here today to address those rumors directly. Veronica smiled slightly, clearly expecting James to announce that he was ending whatever inappropriate relationship had developed. The rumors are true, James continued. I am in a relationship with Chloe, and I intend to continue that relationship regardless of what anyone in this room thinks about it. The room erupted in murmurs. One of the board members, an elderly man named Richard Chen, spoke up. James, surely you understand the optics of this situation. A CEO dating an employee, particularly one with such disparate backgrounds, opens the company to all sorts of liability. Then Chloe will resign from her position, James said calmly. I have already arranged for a generous severance package that is completely appropriate and legal. Her work on the wellness program has been exemplary, and her successor will have big shoes to fill. But I will not end my relationship with her to satisfy anyone's concerns about optics. Veronica stood up abruptly. This is insane. James, you are throwing away everything we've built together for some woman you barely know. What happens when this little romance fizzles out? What happens when you realize you made a mistake? James turned to Veronica, and his voice was gentle but firm. Veronica, you have been an incredible business partner, and I value everything we have accomplished together. But you need to understand something. This is not a phase or a mistake. This is me finally understanding what matters in life. You deserve someone who loves you the way I love Chloe. That person is not me, and pretending otherwise is not fair to either of us. Veronica's face crumpled for just a moment before she regained her composure. Fine. If that is how you feel, then perhaps it is time I moved on as well. I have had offers from other companies. Maybe it is time I took one of them. I would hate to lose you, James said honestly, but I understand if you feel that is best. The board meeting continued, but the tension was palpable. When it finally ended, James found Chloe in her office packing up her belongings. You did not have to make such a public declaration, she said quietly. Yes, I did. I needed everyone to know that I am serious about this, about us. James helped her pack a framed photo of Tommy. Besides, I have a proposition for you. What kind of proposition? Come work with me on something new. I want to start a foundation that helps single parents get job training and education. I want to create scholarship programs for kids like Tommy. I want to use my money to actually help people instead of just accumulating more of it, and I want you to help me do it. Not as an employee, but as a partner. Chloe looked at him with wonder. You want to start a foundation? I've been thinking about it since the night I met you. I have spent 20 years making money. Maybe it is time I spent some years making a difference. What do you say? Before Chloe could answer, her phone rang. It was Tommy's school. Her heart sank, fearing something was wrong, but the teacher was calling with good news. Tommy had won the science fair with his project on dinosaur extinction theories. He wanted his mom and James to come celebrate with him. They went to the school together, and Tommy ran to them with a blue ribbon and a smile that could light up the city. "Mom, James, look, I won, and I want to say something." Tommy turned to James with the seriousness that children sometimes possess. "I know that you and my mom like each other, and I think that is really good because my mom has not been this happy in a long time. And you are nice to me and teach me about business stuff even though I want to talk about dinosaurs. So I think you should be my dad, if that is okay with you." James felt his eyes burn with tears. He knelt down to Tommy's level. "That would be more than okay with me. That would be the greatest honor of my life." Tommy hugged him, and James held this small boy who had somehow become so important to him. When he looked up, he saw Chloe crying happy tears, and he knew with absolute certainty that this was where he was meant to be. 3 months later, Veronica did take a position at another company, leaving on good terms and even attending the small dinner party. James threw to announce his engagement to Chloe. The foundation launched to widespread acclaim, helping hundreds of families in its first year. Tommy continued to educate anyone who would listen about prehistoric creatures. And James discovered that the best investment he ever made was not in technology or real estate, but in opening his heart to a woman who taught him that wealth was measured in love, not dollars. On their wedding day, a small ceremony in Central Park with just close friends and Tommy serving as ring bearer, James whispered to Chloe, "Thank you for saving me." Chloe smiled and whispered back, "We saved each other." They had. Because sometimes the greatest love stories begin not with a meet-cute or a grand romantic gesture, but with one person on their knees begging for help and another person brave enough to offer it. From that desperate moment in a hospital lobby grew a love that changed people's lives, reminded a billionaire of his humanity, gave a single mother hope for the future, and showed a little boy that sometimes prayers are answered in unexpected ways. Years later, when people asked James Whitmore how he built his empire, he would smile and say that his real success began the night he heard a mother beg for her son's life and realized that compassion was worth more than any business deal. And when they asked Chloe what she attributed her happiness to, she would say that she learned that accepting help was not weakness, but courage, and that sometimes the person who saves you is also the person you save in return. Tommy grew up to become a paleontologist, fulfilling his childhood dream, but he also founded a nonprofit that provided educational resources to underprivileged children, carrying on the legacy of kindness that brought his family together. And every year, on the anniversary of that rainy November night when everything changed, the three of them would return to the hospital where their story began and donate funds to help other desperate parents who needed miracles. Because in the end, that is what love does. It transforms us, redeems us, and reminds us that we are all connected by our capacity for compassion. James and Chloe's love story was not about a billionaire saving a poor woman. It was about two people from similar beginnings finding their way back to what really mattered and discovering that together they could build something more valuable than money could ever buy. They built a family, a foundation for helping others, and a love that proved that the best treasures in life cannot be bought or sold, but only given freely from one open heart to another.